and welcome to Morgan and Platell. Now, they've put Batman on Buckingham Palace, they've handcuffed themselves to ministers, and they've thrown purple flour at the Prime Minister. Our guest tonight's Matt O'Connor, the founder and mastermind behind Fathers for Justice.
They say they're fighting for the right to see their kids. Their critics say they're putting their own selfish interests before the welfare of their children.
Now, I'm sympathetic to these guys, but I am worried that their stunts are now getting in the way of achieving the changes in the law that they really want.
I'm more worried about their motivations. Are they really anything more than a bunch of feckless, failed fathers who had their chance to be good dads and blew it?
Matt, you feckless, failed father, you.
Terrible, I know.
She always goes in easily. Let's go back to your story, because it's obviously a hugely emotive issue, and the whole country is talking about this issue now. Yours is a hugely emotive case, as they all are. What happened to you that drove you to create Fathers for Justice?
Well, I was, the first thing, I probably was a feckless, failed husband, not a feckless, failed father. That's the first thing I'd say, and I behaved pretty irresponsibly. I'm pleased to say that I now get on great with my ex-wife, see my kids, but we did go through a bad divorce. I went through a very difficult time, as my ex-wife did, as did our children. And it took me to a point where I was on Waterloo Bridge one evening, having consumed a not insubstantial quantity of whiskey, and I was looking into the Thames, staggering with two bits of paper, and one was a reason to carry on going, which was my children. And the other was a reason not to carry on going, because I lost my job, couldn't get to my house, wasn't seeing my children, was going for the family courts. Yeah, my life was pretty much like ground zero. And it was at that point that I kind of, the initial seed, the idea was planted in my mind, that instead of jumping off bridges, perhaps we should start trying to make something good out of something bad. Absolutely.
I mean, in terms of what drove you to create Fathers for Justice, what was it about the law that you experienced which angered you so much? What seemed so unfair to you?
Just the whole thing came as one hell of a shock, frankly, as David Blunkett's probably about to find out. Because in the family courts, most cases are heard in secret. There's no accountability of the judges. The judges can make unfettered decisions that can result in the breaking of the bond between parent and child. And you can spend a lot of money getting a court order that frankly isn't worth the paper it's written on. You might go in and spend £3,000, £4,000, £5,000, £10,000 to get that order. There's a 50% chance of that order be broken. That's horrific, and I was appalled at what went on. And the very last time I was in the family court, on my particular case, I had an argument with the judge in the Royal Courts of Justice, and I said, I will put you out of your job, come hell or high water. And that's what I'm intended to do.
But Matt, the way you talk about it, you think that there are millions of fathers out there, you know, decent, redeemed, whatever fathers who are desperate to get proper contact with their kids. The kind of cases you're talking about are an absolute minority. 90% of dads have, I'd never say happy, because I don't think any dad who loses daily contact with his child is going to be happy, but 90% of dads settle out of court. 10% of them go to court, only 1% are denied access.
That's actually wrong. I think that's from a sample, it's a very small sample of figures. I mean, it's less than 1,000 families, that particular sample which you're quoting from the DCA, the Department for Constitutional Affairs. What we have is a massive and growing crisis, as evidenced by the fact the Home Secretary is now going through it.
Yeah, but he's just one. He may just be one of, I mean, I don't think he's a great example to be highlighting here. He's still in a real minority. There aren't many men in his position.
I think most people know somebody who's going through a divorce or going through a separation. Most people know somebody who has access problems. There are now over 67,000 contact orders awarded last year. That's up from 22,000, I think, in 1992. That's a massive, phenomenal growth rate. In the London courts, according to Justice Singer, there's been a 50% increase in the number of cases going to court over the last 2 years.
But do you think that's just the courts just being difficult? Don't you think that they're actually acting because, like in your case, as well, you said you were a bad husband, but you said you weren't a bad father. I think perhaps your wife may have contested that at the time when you had all your problems, yeah. And I know that you've come round, which is great. But, you know, they're not doing it for no reason. They're doing it because a lot of men are violent, a lot of men aren't paying their way, a lot of men have abrogated their responsibilities to those children, but they want all the rights but none of the responsibilities.
Well, man, it makes me laugh somewhat, because I remember reading one of your fine articles in the Daily Mail recently where you were saying that David Blunkett should walk away from his kids. So you're actually advocating the Home Secretary to become a deadbeat dad. Now, which way is it? Which way is it, Amanda? Which way do you want it? Do you want us to be loving dads
I want
fighting
you
to see our kids, or do
simple
you want us
answer,
to be
Matt.
deadbeat dads and walk away?
Simple answer, Matt, and I know it's very complicated here. I want you to put the child first.
And
That's what the court does. The court doesn't put the dad first, it puts the child first. And that's what I was saying in that piece in the Daily Mail about David
How can you
Blunkett.
verify? How do you know? How does the court know it's actually putting the child's best interest first? Because I'll tell you what, nobody's kept any records on the outcomes for children, be it after 2 years, be it after 5 years, be it after 10 years. Nobody can tell you. You can't tell me that this court system is working in the child's best interest. We have a nation, as Bob Geldof said, of feckless adolescents, feral children, all around us. The second highest rate of young offending now in Western Europe. Cost this country £10 billion. 1 in 4 teenagers is now a criminal. There is a compelling evidence to support the link between this explosion in young offending and this epidemic of fatherlessness. And that's what we're campaigning for. What we're campaigning for makes absolute total common sense. And I think the reason why we're going for this change is that there is massive, the underlying social dynamics are that relationships become more informal, women are becoming more predatory sexually. There are a lot of these kind of things that are going on underneath the surface of society. And I think we'll look back in 10, 15 years' time and say we went through a massive period of social upheaval.
But, Matt, one of the things that isn't changing is that women are still the primary carers, and that's what the
Well, that is
courts are
changing.
reflecting.
No, that is changing.
It's changing, but it's
Well,
still the majority of
it's
women
not
are
actually.
the majority
I'm
of
sorry,
carers.
I'll quote to you the Equal Opportunities Commission now. A third of all childcare is actually provided by
A
fathers.
third isn't a majority, Matt. A
Well,
third is a
third-
Oh, come on,
minority.
Amanda,
A third doesn't get a government elected.
Hang on, you
Well,
know,
that's
you know as well as I do.
24.1%.
Matt's absolutely right here, because if you go back 20, 30 years, it would have been 1% of childcare done by men.
No, I can
There
see
is
that.
a massive social change going on. It's to do with women going out to work, which is great. It's to do with men wanting to be part of their family and bring up the children, which is also great. I mean, it seems to me the crux of this, for those who've never been through it, Matt, what is it like to be with your kids on a daily basis, then see a relationship fracture, and then be removed from that into a twilight world of once a fortnight or whatever it is? What's it like emotionally to deal with that?
Well, I still struggle talking about this because, as I kind of coin this phrase, it's like a living bereavement because you are cut away from your children, and nothing can really prepare you for if you get 4 hours on a Saturday with your kids. Where do you go for 4 hours? I used to take my two to the cinema because it's the closest I get to being in a home environment. No, but where did I go and sit down with them? No,
Well, they go to McDonald's for 2 hours, they go to the park for 3 hours. It's a terrible system. It's a system that, in my view, if a guy like Matt O'Connor is brave enough to say, as he did to himself and to everybody else, I've cocked up my marriage here, I was a bad husband, but I'm prepared to change. Why the hell should the law not allow him access to children when he's never been a threat to his kids in any way? He's just a loving dad. He may be a terrible husband, but he's a good dad. Why shouldn't he be allowed by the law to have just reasonable access? How can the law allow women just to say, you're not seeing your kids?